The rope burned against Beatrice Brennan's wrists as consciousness clawed its way back through layers of pain and darkness, and the first thing she understood with terrible clarity was that she might die in this wagon before anyone found her. Her shoulders screamed from being wrenched behind her back for what felt like hours, maybe days. The metallic taste of blood coated her tongue where they had struck her across the mouth when she fought back at the trading post. Through swollen eyes, she could make out the interior of the covered wagon, its canvas top filtering the harsh Colorado sunlight into a sickly yellow glow. Iron locks secured the back gate, trapping her inside like an animal being transported to slaughter. Beatrice tried to move, but her ankles were bound as tightly as her wrists. The wagon jolted over uneven ground, each bump sending fresh agony through her battered body. She was 22 years old, and 3 days ago she had been working peacefully at her father's trading post outside Montezuma, Colorado, helping customers and dreaming of the life she might build in this wild country. Then the Garrett brothers had ridden in with their cold eyes and cruel smiles, demanding supplies her father could not afford to give away. When he refused, they had beaten him unconscious and taken Beatrice instead, along with everything of value they could carry. The wagon slowed. Beatrice's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the canvas, she heard men's voices, rough and arguing. They were fighting over her fate, she realized with sick dread. One wanted to ransom her back to her family. The other insisted they should sell her to a brothel in Denver, where no questions would be asked. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She would not give up. Her father had taught her to be strong, to survive. If she could just free her hands, if she could find something sharp in this wagon to cut the ropes. The voices grew louder, angrier. Then gunfire split the air. Beatrice froze, hardly daring to breathe. More shots rang out, followed by shouting and the thunder of hooves. The wagon lurched violently as the horses hitched to it spooked and tried to bolt. She was thrown against the wooden side, her head cracking against the boards hard enough to make stars explode across her vision. When the world steadied, everything had gone quiet. Too quiet. Footsteps approached the wagon, slow and deliberate. A man's footsteps, heavy boots crunching on rocky ground. Beatrice's whole body tensed. Was this another outlaw? Someone worse than the Garrett brothers? The footsteps stopped at the back of the wagon. She heard breathing, steady and controlled. Then a voice, deep and measured, speaking softly as if to calm a frightened horse. "Anyone in there? If you can hear me, I mean you no harm. I am coming around to open this up." Beatrice wanted to respond, but her throat was too dry, too tight with fear. She made a small sound, barely more than a whimper. "All right," the voice said, gentler now. "Hold on." She heard him examine the locks, heard his muttered curse when he found them securing the wagon gate. Then he called out, "Step back if you can. I am going to shoot these locks off." Beatrice tried to scoot backward, but with her limbs bound, she could barely move. She turned her face away and squeezed her eyes shut as the gun fired once, twice. The sound was deafening in the confined space. Metal screamed and clattered as the shattered locks fell away. Sunlight flooded in as the wagon gate swung open. Beatrice squinted against the brightness, making out only a silhouette at first, a tall figure backlit by the afternoon sun. Then he climbed into the wagon, and she could see him clearly. He was young, perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair that curled slightly beneath his worn hat. His face was sun-bronzed and angular, with a strong jaw shadowed by several days' worth of beard. But it was his eyes that caught her, pale blue-gray like storm clouds, filled with concern as they took in her bound and battered state. "Jesus," he breathed, already pulling a knife from his belt. "What did they do to you?" He moved quickly but carefully, kneeling beside her. "I am going to cut you free now. My name is Benjamin Faulkner. I am a deputy marshal out of Montezuma. You are safe now." The knife was sharp, the blade making quick work of the ropes around her ankles. When he moved to her wrists, he had to help her roll onto her side. His hands were gentle despite their obvious strength, careful not to hurt her further as he sliced through the bindings. The moment her hands were free, the blood rushed back into them with 1,000 needles of pain. Beatrice gasped and would have fallen if Benjamin had not caught her, supporting her weight as she struggled to sit up. "Easy," he said softly. "You have been tied up for a while. Your body needs time to adjust." She tried to speak, but only a croak emerged. Benjamin immediately produced a canteen, uncapping it and holding it to her lips. "Small sips," he instructed. The water was the sweetest thing Beatrice had ever tasted. She drank greedily until he pulled it away. "Not too much at once. You will make yourself sick." Her voice came out raspy and broken. "My father, at the trading post. They beat him. I do not know if he is alive." Benjamin's expression hardened. "Henry Brennan? That is your father?" She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "The Garrett brothers came 3 days ago. They wanted supplies on credit. Papa could not afford it. They hurt him so badly. Then they took me." "Your father is alive," Benjamin said firmly. "Hurt, but alive. He is the one who reported you missing. I have been tracking the Garrett brothers since yesterday morning." Relief flooded through Beatrice so powerfully that she began to shake. Benjamin shrugged out of his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, his hands steady and reassuring. "You are all right now. I have got you." She looked past him, toward where the wagon sat in the middle of a rocky canyon. "The Garrett brothers? Both dead. They drew on me when I told them to stop. They made their choice." His voice was matter of fact, but she saw something flicker in his eyes, a shadow that suggested killing men was never easy for him, even when justified. "Can you stand? We need to get you back to town. Get you looked at by a doctor." With Benjamin's help, Beatrice managed to climb out of the wagon. Her legs nearly gave out when her feet touched solid ground, but he caught her again, one arm around her waist to keep her upright. She found herself leaning against his solid warmth, too exhausted and hurt to be embarrassed. 2 horses stood nearby, one a paint and the other a dark bay. 2 bodies lay on the ground, face down, their blood darkening the dust. Beatrice looked away quickly. "We will take my horse," Benjamin said, guiding her toward the bay. "Paint can follow on a lead. Think you can ride if I hold on to you?" "I can try." He lifted her into the saddle with surprising ease, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her to take the reins, creating a secure cage that made her feel protected rather than trapped. She sagged back against his chest, too worn out to maintain any pretense of strength. "How far is Montezuma?" she asked. "About 3 hours if we take it steady. We will be there before dark." As they started forward, Beatrice felt the tension finally begin to drain from her body. The nightmare was over. She was alive and free, held safe by this stranger with kind eyes who had appeared like an answer to prayer. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for finding me." His arms tightened slightly around her, a gesture of comfort. "You do not need to thank me. I am just glad I got here when I did." They rode in silence for a while, following a trail that wound through the rocky canyon and out onto open grassland. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold and amber. Colorado stretched around them in all its wild beauty, the Rockies rising in the distance like ancient guardians. Beatrice's mind drifted, exhaustion and shock finally catching up with her. She found herself studying Benjamin's hands where they held the reins, noting the calluses and scars that spoke of hard work and harder living. They were capable hands, strong and sure. The same hands that had cut her free and shot the locks that imprisoned her. "You said you are a deputy marshal?" she asked, needing the distraction of conversation to keep from dwelling on what she had been through. "Yes, for about 2 years now. Before that, I worked as a ranch hand, did some trail driving, but I wanted to do something that mattered. Something that helped people. He paused. Though days like today make me wonder if I am doing enough. You saved my life, that matters. Maybe, but I should have found you sooner. 3 days is a long time to be in the hands of men like the Garretts. Beatrice heard the self-recrimination in his voice and twisted slightly to look up at him. You found me. That is what counts. I was beginning to think no one would. His eyes met hers, and something passed between them, some current of understanding that made her breath catch. Then he looked away, back to the trail ahead. Your father never stopped looking. He was ready to ride out himself, injuries and all, until the marshal ordered him to stay put and let us do our job. A smile tugged at Beatrice's cracked lips. That sounded exactly like her father, stubborn and fierce in his love for her. How badly is he hurt? Broken ribs, bad bruising, a gash on his head that needed stitching. But he is tough. He will recover fully, the doctor says. They talked more as they rode, small conversations that helped the time pass. Benjamin told her about growing up in Kansas, about coming to Colorado 5 years ago seeking adventure and opportunity. Beatrice found herself telling him about her mother, who had died of fever when Beatrice was 15, about helping her father build the trading post from nothing, about her dreams of maybe opening a school someday because the children in the mining camps had so few opportunities for education. That is a good dream, Benjamin said. This territory needs more teachers, more people who care about building something lasting instead of just chasing quick money. The sun was setting behind the mountains when Montezuma finally came into view. Its collection of wooden buildings clustered along a creek in a valley surrounded by peaks. Smoke rose from chimneys and lamplight glowed in windows. It looked like home, like safety, and Beatrice felt tears sting her eyes again. Benjamin guided the horse down the main street, and people emerged from buildings to stare. Beatrice knew how she must look, battered and filthy, wrapped in a man's coat and riding pressed against him. But she was too tired to care what they thought. They stopped in front of a building with a sign reading Montezuma Hotel and Surgery. Before Benjamin could dismount, the door burst open, and her father came rushing out, moving faster than any man with broken ribs should be able to move. Beatrice, thank God, thank God! Henry Brennan reached up for her, and Benjamin carefully lowered her into her father's arms. They clung to each other, both crying now, and Beatrice felt the last of her terror finally release its grip on her heart. Papa, I was so afraid. I thought they had killed you. Takes more than a couple of cowards to kill me, girl. I am so sorry. I am so sorry I could not protect you. It was not your fault. None of this was your fault. An older man in a clean white shirt emerged from the building, his gray beard and sharp eyes marking him as the doctor. Henry, bring her inside. Let me look her over. Benjamin had dismounted and stood a few paces away, watching the reunion with a small smile. Beatrice caught his eye and mouthed, "Thank you," once more. He touched the brim of his hat in acknowledgement. As her father helped her toward the door, she looked back over her shoulder. Benjamin was already leading the horses away, heading toward the marshal's office. She wanted to call out to him, to say something more, but the moment passed and he disappeared around a corner. Inside, the doctor examined her thoroughly, noting the bruising on her face and body, the rope burns on her wrists and ankles, the various scrapes and cuts she had accumulated. Nothing broken, he announced finally. You are very lucky, young lady. This could have been much worse. He gave her laudanum for the pain and instructed her father to keep her quiet and rested for the next few days. Henry had rented 2 rooms at the hotel while the trading post was being repaired, and he helped Beatrice up the stairs to the room he had prepared for her. A bath had been drawn and clean clothes laid out. As Beatrice sank into the hot water, washing away 3 days of dirt and terror, she found her thoughts returning again and again to Benjamin Faulkner. She wanted to see him again, to thank him properly, to know more about the man who had appeared like a hero from the stories she had loved as a child. She slept deeply that night, her father keeping watch from a chair beside her bed. In her dreams, she rode across endless grasslands, held safe in strong arms, heading towards something bright and new. Morning came with sunshine streaming through the window. Beatrice woke feeling sore, but more clear-headed than she had been since her ordeal began. Her father insisted she stay in bed and brought her breakfast from the hotel restaurant, hovering anxiously until she had eaten every bite. "Papa, I am all right," she finally said, catching his hand. "You need to rest too. Your ribs have not healed yet." "I will rest when I am dead," he grumbled, but there was no heat in it. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down heavily. "B, we need to talk about what happens now." "What do you mean?" "The trading post. The Garretts destroyed half our inventory, smashed what they did not steal. I have some money saved, but rebuilding will take time and resources we do not have much of." He rubbed his face wearily. "I have been thinking maybe it is time to move on. Go somewhere safer, somewhere you would not have to worry about men like the Garretts riding in." Beatrice sat up straighter, ignoring the protests from her bruised body. "No, Papa, this is our home. We built something here. We have friends here. You cannot let them chase us away. You are more important than any business bee." "I know that, but I also know you. You will regret leaving, and so will I." She squeezed his hand. "We are strong. We will rebuild. We will be more careful, more prepared, but we will not run." Henry Brennan looked at his daughter for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You sound like your mother. She never would have run either." He managed a smile. "All right, we stay. We rebuild." Over the next few days, Beatrice recovered her strength. Her bruises faded from black to purple to yellow-green. The swelling in her face went down. She was finally able to walk without limping, to use her hands without wincing at the rope burns. She asked her father about Benjamin several times, trying to sound casual. Henry gave her knowing looks, but answered readily enough. "The deputy marshal? He rode out the day after bringing you back. Marshal sent him down to Pueblo on some business. He should be back in a week or so." A week felt like an eternity. Beatrice threw herself into helping her father sort through the damage at the trading post. The Garretts had been thorough in their destruction, but not everything was lost. They salvaged what they could, made lists of what needed to be replaced, began the slow work of rebuilding. The community rallied around them. Miners and ranchers who had been customers brought supplies they could spare, refusing payment. A carpenter spent 3 days repairing the broken shelves and counters, waving away Henry's attempts to settle the bill. "You have given me credit more times than I can count when things were tight," he said. "Consider it repaid." Beatrice found herself moved by the generosity, by the way people looked after each other in this rough place. It reminded her why they had chosen to build a life here, despite the dangers. 10 days after her rescue, she was restocking shelves when the bell above the door chimed. She turned, words of greeting on her lips, and froze. Benjamin Faulkner stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands. He looked tired, dust from the trail still clinging to his clothes, but his face lit up when he saw her. "Miss Brennan, you look much better." Beatrice was suddenly acutely aware of her appearance, her hair tied back in a simple braid, her dress worn and practical. She wished she had worn something nicer, done something more with her hair. Then she mentally shook herself. What did it matter what she looked like? "Deputy Faulkner, I heard you were in Pueblo. Just got back. I wanted to stop by and see how you were doing." "I am well, thanks to you." She set down the can she had been holding and came around the counter. "I never properly thanked you. You saved my life." He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable with her gratitude. "I was just doing my job." "It was more than a job. You did not have to be kind. You did not have to be gentle. But you were both those things when I needed them most." She held his gaze, willing him to understand how much it had meant. Color rose in his cheeks. Any decent man would have done the same. Perhaps, but you were the one who was there. She hesitated, then added, Would you like some coffee? We just brewed a fresh pot. His face broke into a smile that transformed it, making him look younger and somehow more open. I would like that very much. They sat on the porch of the trading post, watching the afternoon activity in the street while they drank their coffee. Beatrice asked about his trip to Pueblo, and Benjamin told her about tracking down a horse thief, about the tedious hours spent interviewing witnesses and searching for evidence. It is not all dramatic rescues and shootouts, he said wryly. Most of the time, it is just hard, boring work. But important work. I like to think so. They fell into an easy conversation, the kind where silences were comfortable rather than awkward. Beatrice learned that Benjamin had a sister back in Kansas who wrote him long letters full of family gossip, that he played the harmonica but not very well, that he had a weakness for apple pie and good books when he could get his hands on them. She told him about her dreams of opening a school, about the children she had taught to read in quiet moments at the trading post, about the hunger for learning she saw in so many young faces. You should do it, Benjamin said firmly. Open the school. This town needs someone like you. It takes money to start a school, money we do not have right now. Things change. Money comes and goes. But opportunities, real opportunities, do not come along often. When they do, you have to grab them. His conviction warmed something in Beatrice's chest. She studied his profile as he gazed out at the mountains, noting the strong line of his jaw, the way the sunlight caught in his dark hair. He was handsome, she realized, though that seemed too simple a word for what she was feeling. Henry came out onto the porch, leaning heavily on a cane. Deputy, good to see you back. Benjamin stood immediately, offering the older man his chair. Mr. Brennan, how are you healing? Slow but sure. The doctor says I will be good as new in another month. He settled into the chair with a grateful grunt. I wanted to thank you properly for bringing my girl home. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You do not owe me anything, sir. I owe you everything, and I always pay my debts. Henry pulled something from his pocket and held it out. It was a watch, old but well-maintained, the silver case engraved with intricate designs. This was my father's. He carried it when he first came west, and he gave it to me before he died. I want you to have it. Benjamin stared at the watch, clearly struggling with emotion. Sir, I cannot accept this. It is a family heirloom. You brought my family back together. You brought her home to me. That makes you family as far as I am concerned. Henry pressed the watch into Benjamin's hand and closed his fingers around it. Please, it would mean a great deal to me. Benjamin looked down at the watch, then at Henry, then at Beatrice. Thank you, he said quietly. I will treasure it. After Benjamin left, promising to stop by again soon, Henry turned to his daughter with a knowing smile. He is a good man. Beatrice felt her cheeks warm. Yes, he is. You could do worse. Papa? I am just saying. He is young, honorable, has a steady job, and the way he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. Henry chuckled. Reminds me of how I used to look at your mother. Beatrice did not know what to say to that, so she changed the subject, bustling back inside to continue her work. But her father's words echoed in her mind, especially the part about how Benjamin looked at her. Did he look at her a certain way? She had been so focused on trying not to stare at him that she had not noticed if he was doing the same. Over the following weeks, Benjamin found reasons to stop by the trading post with increasing frequency. Sometimes he came to buy supplies. Sometimes he came to update Henry on the investigation into the Garrett brothers' other crimes. Sometimes he came just to sit on the porch and talk. Beatrice lived for those visits. She found herself watching the street, hoping to see him walking toward the post. When he appeared, her whole day became brighter. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and dreams, learning each other's thoughts and opinions. Benjamin told her about a gunfight he had witnessed in Dodge City before coming to Colorado, about the fear and exhilaration that had flooded through him. Beatrice told him about the day her mother died, about the terrible loneliness that had followed, about learning to be strong because someone had to be. "You are one of the strongest people I've ever met," Benjamin said seriously. They were sitting on the porch again, watching the sun set behind the mountains. "After everything you went through, you could have broken, but you did not. You stood back up and kept going. I had help, my father, friends, you." She looked at him. "I do not think I could have recovered so well if you had not been so kind to me that day." Beatrice. It was the first time he had used her given name, and the sound of it on his lips sent a shiver through her. "I need to tell you something." Her heart began to pound. "What is it?" "I have been trying to find the right time, the right words, but there never seems to be a perfect moment. So I am just going to say it." He took a deep breath. "I care about you. More than I should, probably, considering how we met and how little time has passed, but I cannot stop thinking about you. Cannot stop wanting to see you, to talk to you, to be near you." He met her eyes, his own full of hope and fear. "I know this is sudden. I know you might not feel the same way, but I needed you to know." Beatrice's breath caught in her throat. Joy flooded through her, so intense it was almost painful. "Benjamin, I feel the same way. I have felt the same way almost from the beginning. I thought maybe I was foolish, that it was too soon, that you could not possibly want someone like me. Someone like you. Beatrice, you are everything I could want. You are brave and kind and beautiful and smart. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make me want to be better than I am." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "May I court you? Properly, the way you deserve?" "Yes." The word came out as barely more than a whisper. "Yes, I would like that very much." He smiled, that transforming smile that made her heart skip beats. Then, still holding her hand, he leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Thank you." They sat together as darkness fell, hands intertwined, not needing words. The future stretched before them, uncertain but suddenly full of possibility. Henry gave his blessing to the courtship immediately, making it clear he could not be happier with Beatrice's choice. "That young man has honor," he said. "You can see it in everything he does. Your mother would have approved." Benjamin courted Beatrice with an old-fashioned thoroughness that touched her deeply. He brought her flowers picked from the mountain meadows. He took her on long walks through the valley, pointing out wildlife and telling her stories. He borrowed books from everyone he knew so she would have new things to read, and they spent hours discussing philosophy and poetry and history. He also made it clear that he respected her boundaries, never pushing for more physical affection than she was comfortable giving. The relationship progressed slowly, from held hands to brief kisses, each step taken with mutual consent and growing trust. 3 months into their courtship, Benjamin took Beatrice on a picnic up into the mountains, to a meadow carpeted with wildflowers and surrounded by aspen trees. They ate the lunch she had packed, talking and laughing, comfortable in the way only people who truly know each other can be. After they finished eating, Benjamin pulled something from his saddlebag. It was a small wooden box, carefully carved with the same kind of intricate designs that decorated his father's watch. "I made this for you," he said, handing it to her. "It is not much, but I wanted you to have something that came from my hands." Beatrice opened the box carefully. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft cloth, was a ring. It was simple but beautiful, a silver band set with a small turquoise stone. "Benjamin, it is lovely. Beatrice Brennan." He slid from his seat on the blanket to one knee, taking her hand. I know we have not been courting for long. I know people will say we are rushing things, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life than I am of this. I love you. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you see the world. I love how you make me want to be better, to do more, to build something lasting. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to make you as happy as you have made me? Tears streamed down Beatrice's face, but she was smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Yes, oh yes, Benjamin, I will marry you. I love you too, so much it sometimes scares me. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him up to kiss him properly, deeply, pouring all her love and joy into that connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Benjamin rested his forehead against hers. I am going to do everything I can to give you the life you deserve, he promised. You already have, she whispered back. You gave me back my life when you found me in that wagon. Everything since then has been a gift. They were married 6 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church in Montezuma. The whole town turned out to celebrate, cramming into the small building to witness the deputy marshal and the trading post owner's daughter exchange their vows. Beatrice wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved all these years, and carried flowers that Benjamin had picked himself that morning. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Benjamin kissed her in front of everyone, Beatrice felt a completeness she had not known was possible. This was right. This was real. This was everything she had dreamed of and more. They moved into a small house on the edge of town, a cabin that Benjamin had been fixing up for months in preparation. It was modest but comfortable, with 2 rooms and a loft, a stone fireplace, and windows that looked out toward the mountains. Beatrice filled it with curtains and rugs and small touches that made it a home. Henry gave them part ownership of the trading post as a wedding gift, and Benjamin continued his work as a deputy marshal. Their lives fell into a rhythm, busy but satisfying. Beatrice ran the post during the days when Benjamin was working, and they spent their evenings together, cooking and talking and learning the art of being married. It was not always easy. Benjamin's job took him away sometimes for days at a time, and Beatrice learned to live with the fear that he might not come back. They had their first real fight 3 months into their marriage, when he came home with a bullet graze across his ribs and tried to pretend it was nothing. Beatrice had been so angry and scared that she yelled at him for being reckless, and he yelled back that she knew what his job was when she married him. They went to bed angry that night, lying on opposite sides of the mattress, both too stubborn to apologize. But sometime in the early hours of the morning, Beatrice woke to find Benjamin's arms around her, his face buried in her hair. I am sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry. You are right. I was being reckless. I promised to give you a life together, and I cannot do that if I get myself killed doing something stupid. She turned in his arms and held him close. I am sorry too. I know your job is dangerous. I just get so scared of losing you. You are not going to lose me. I promise to be more careful, to think about coming home to you before I take unnecessary risks. And I promise to try not to yell at you when you come home hurt. At least not until after I have made sure you are all right. They held each other until morning, the fight resolved, and the bond between them stronger for having weathered the conflict. Winter came early that year, blanketing Montezuma in deep snow and turning the world white and silent. The trading post did steady business as people stocked up on supplies to get through the cold months. Benjamin spent more time in town as travel became difficult and dangerous. On Christmas Eve, Beatrice gave Benjamin his gift, a leather-bound journal for recording his experiences. You have so many stories, she said. They should be written down, preserved. He gave her a package that turned out to contain books, a whole box of them ordered from Denver. Books on education and teaching methods, books that would help her when she finally opened her school. When? She looked up at him with shining eyes. You said when, not if. I have been saving my pay. Your father has been setting aside a portion of the post's profits. We are almost there, Beatrice. By spring, you will have your school. They made love that night in front of the fireplace, the warmth of their passion a contrast to the cold outside. Afterward, lying wrapped in blankets with Benjamin's arms around her, Beatrice felt a contentment so complete it almost frightened her. She had not known it was possible to be this happy. "What are you thinking?" Benjamin asked, his voice drowsy. "That I am the luckiest woman in Colorado, maybe in the whole country. I am the lucky one. I found you when you needed saving, and you saved me right back." "How did I save you?" "You gave me something to live for besides the job. You gave me a reason to come home, to build a future, to believe in something beyond just surviving." He kissed the top of her head. "You saved me from being alone." Spring came with a rush of melting snow and budding wildflowers. True to Benjamin's promise, they broke ground on the school in early April. It would be a small building, just one room to start, but it would be enough. The community helped with the construction, miners and ranchers contributing labor and materials. Beatrice threw herself into preparations, ordering supplies, developing lesson plans, spreading word that the Montezuma School would open its doors in June. Children of all ages would be welcome, from those just learning their letters to older students who wanted to improve their reading and ciphering. The night before the school opened, Beatrice was too excited and nervous to sleep. She paced the cabin, checking and rechecking her lesson plans, until Benjamin finally pulled her into his arms. "You are going to be wonderful," he said firmly. "Those children are lucky to have you as their teacher. What if I am not good at it? What if I fail?" "You will not fail. And even if you stumble at first, you will learn and get better. That is what you tell me all the time about my work, is it not?" He tilted her face up to look at him. "You have got this. I believe in you." Those simple words, spoken with such conviction, steadied her nerves. She took a deep breath and nodded. "You are right. I can do this." And she did. The first day of school saw 15 students ranging from 6 to 14 years old crowding into the little building, eager and curious. Beatrice taught them letters and numbers, but also history and geography, telling them about the wider world and showing them that learning opened doors to possibilities they might never have imagined. The school became her passion, just as being a deputy marshal was Benjamin's. They supported each other's work, celebrated each other's successes, offered comfort during the hard times. In August, Beatrice realized her monthly courses had not come. She waited another month to be sure, then went to see the doctor. He confirmed what she had suspected. She was expecting a baby, due sometime in early spring. She told Benjamin that evening when he came home from work. He stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then his face split into the biggest smile she had ever seen, and he swept her up in his arms, spinning her around despite her protests. "A baby! We are going to have a baby!" He set her down carefully, suddenly worried. "Are you all right? Is everything all right?" "What did the doctor say?" She laughed at his sudden nervousness. "I am fine. Everything is fine. We are having a baby, Benjamin." He knelt and pressed his face against her still flat stomach. "Hello in there. I am your papa. I cannot wait to meet you." Beatrice ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with love for this man and the life they were creating together. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Beatrice continued teaching until January, when the doctor advised her to rest and prepare for the birth. Her students gave her a quilt they had all worked on together, each square decorated with their names and drawings. She cried when they presented it, touched by their thoughtfulness. Benjamin became increasingly protective as her due date approached, hovering and fretting until Beatrice finally snapped at him to stop treating her like she was made of glass. They had another fight, not as serious as the first, but enough to create tension. This time it was Beatrice who apologized first, admitting that she was scared about the birth and taking it out on him. "I am scared too," he confessed. "Women die in childbirth all the time. The thought of losing you is more terrifying than any outlaw I have ever faced." "You are not going to lose me. I am strong, remember?" You told me so yourself. You are the strongest person I know, but that does not mean I do not worry. They held each other, drawing strength from their bond. Whatever came, they would face it together. The baby came on a warm March evening, arriving with the sunset. The birth was long and difficult, and there were moments when Beatrice thought she might not survive it. But she was determined to meet her child, to hold her baby in her arms, to give Benjamin the family he deserved. When the baby finally emerged, squalling and red-faced, the doctor announced, "It is a boy! You have a fine son." Benjamin, who had refused to leave the room despite propriety demanding he wait elsewhere, was at Beatrice's side immediately. "You did it! You did it, my love! He is beautiful!" The doctor placed the baby in Beatrice's arms, and she looked down at her son's tiny, perfect face. He had Benjamin's dark hair and her nose and eyes that might turn any color. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Welcome to the world." They named him Thomas, after Benjamin's father, who had died when Benjamin was young. Thomas Henry Faulkner, a name that honored both sides of his family. Fatherhood transformed Benjamin in ways Beatrice had not expected. He was gentle and patient with Thomas, walking the floor with him during fussy nights, changing his diapers without complaint, talking to him constantly as if the baby could understand every word. Watching her husband with their son made Beatrice fall in love with him all over again. Henry, now a grandfather, doted on the baby shamelessly. He carved toys and told stories, and insisted on holding Thomas every chance he got. "He looks like you did at this age, Bee," he said one afternoon, cradling the sleeping infant. "Same serious expression, like you are thinking deep thoughts. Papa, he is 3 months old. He is not thinking deep thoughts." "How do you know? Babies are smarter than we give them credit for." Beatrice returned to teaching when Thomas was 6 months old, bringing him to school with her. The students adored having a baby in the classroom and fought over who got to help watch him during lessons. It worked surprisingly well, teaching the older students responsibility while allowing Beatrice to continue her work. The years passed in a blur of happiness and growth. The school expanded, adding a second room and another teacher. The trading post prospered, becoming one of the most successful businesses in Montezuma. Benjamin was promoted to marshal when his predecessor retired, putting him in charge of law enforcement for the entire region. Thomas grew from baby to toddler to little boy, bright and curious and fearless. He adored his father and followed him everywhere when Benjamin was home. "Papa, teach me to ride. Papa, show me your gun. Papa, tell me a story about catching bad men." When Thomas was 3, Beatrice became pregnant again. This time she knew what to expect, was less frightened, though no less awed by the miracle of creating life. Their second son, James, arrived on a cold December night, an early Christmas present. James was different from Thomas, quieter and more observant where his brother was loud and energetic. Beatrice loved watching her sons interact, seeing their distinct personalities emerge and complement each other. Henry's health began to decline when Thomas was 5 and James was 2. The injuries from the Garrett brothers' attack had never fully healed, and they took their toll as he aged. He moved into the cabin with Beatrice and Benjamin so they could care for him, and he spent his days playing with his grandsons and helping at the trading post when he felt strong enough. One evening in early spring, Henry called Beatrice and Benjamin to his bedside. The boys were asleep, and the house was quiet. "I need to tell you both something," he said, his voice weak but clear. "I am proud of you, of what you have built together, of the family you have created. Bee, your mother would be so proud of the woman you became. Benjamin, you are the son I never had. Thank you for loving my daughter the way she deserves." "Papa, do not talk like this," Beatrice said, tears streaming down her face. "You are going to be fine." "We both know that is not true, honey, and that is all right. I have lived a good life. I got to see you happy and settled. I got to know my grandsons. A man cannot ask for more than that." He died peacefully 3 days later, in his sleep. They buried him in the Montezuma Cemetery, on a hillside with a view of the mountains he had loved. Beatrice grieved deeply, but she found comfort in Benjamin's arms, and in knowing her father had died happy and proud. Life continued, as it always does. The school grew until it served nearly 50 students. Beatrice trained more teachers, expanding her dream beyond what she had originally imagined. The town council voted to make her the superintendent of Montezuma schools, giving her oversight of education throughout the region. Benjamin's reputation as an honest, effective marshal spread beyond Colorado. He was offered positions in bigger towns with more pay and prestige, but he always turned them down. "This is our home," he told Beatrice. "This is where we belong." Thomas grew into a serious boy with his mother's love of learning and his father's sense of justice. James was gentler, more artistic, spending hours drawing and whittling figures from wood. Beatrice and Benjamin loved them fiercely and equally, encouraging each boy to follow his own path. When Thomas was 10 and James 7, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant for the third time. This pregnancy was harder than the first two, leaving her exhausted and sick. Benjamin worried constantly, and even the boys noticed their mother was not herself. The baby, when she finally arrived after a difficult labor, was tiny but healthy. A daughter at last, with Benjamin's blue-gray eyes and a wisp of reddish-blonde hair. "Margaret," Beatrice said softly. Margaret rose. "After my mother." Benjamin held his daughter with the same careful reverence he had shown his sons, but there was something extra in his expression, an awe and protectiveness that made Beatrice smile. "You are in trouble now," she told him. "Fathers and daughters have a special bond. She is going to have you wrapped around her little finger." "I am already there," he admitted, watching Margaret's tiny hand curl around his finger. Thomas and James were fascinated by their baby sister, hovering around her cradle and begging to help with her care. The three of them together warmed Beatrice's heart. This was what she had dreamed of when she imagined her future, though she had never dared hope it would be so complete. One warm summer evening when Margaret was 6 months old, Benjamin came home from work with an unusual expression on his face. "I need to tell you something," he said after the children were in bed. Beatrice's stomach tightened with worry. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine. It is just something that happened today that made me think." He took her hand and led her out onto the porch where they could see the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. "A young deputy from Denver came through today, tracking a fugitive. He was maybe 22, green as grass, scared out of his mind. And while I was helping him, I kept thinking about how that used to be me, how I was once that scared kid who did not know if he was good enough or brave enough to do the job." "You were never scared," Beatrice said softly. "I was terrified, especially that day I found you." He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the last light of sunset. "I kept thinking, what if I am too late? What if I cannot save her? What if I fail? But you did not fail. You saved me. I got lucky, and finding you changed everything. It made me realize that I was not just fighting outlaws, I was fighting to protect people, to protect you, to protect the possibility of a future with you, even though I did not know it yet." He cupped her face in his hands. "That scared deputy today reminded me of something I never want to forget. How blessed I am. How easily things could have gone differently. How close I came to missing out on all of this, on you and our children, and this life we built." Beatrice felt tears welling up. "I think about that too, about what my life would have been if you had not found me that day. You would have survived. You would have found a way. You are the strongest person I know. Maybe. But I would not have had this, would not have had you." She kissed him deeply, pouring a decade of love and gratitude into that connection. "You gave me everything, Benjamin. You gave me my life back, and then you filled it with more joy than I ever imagined possible." They stood together on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms, as the stars came out above them. Inside, their children slept peacefully. Around them, the town they had helped build continued its quiet evening routine. The years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges, but also deep satisfaction. Thomas decided he wanted to be a lawyer, fascinated by justice and argument. Benjamin helped him study, and when he turned 18, Thomas left for Denver to attend law school. It was hard to watch him go, but Beatrice and Benjamin were proud of his ambition and determination. James discovered a talent for carpentry and apprenticed with a master craftsman in Montezuma. He built beautiful furniture and structures, creating things that would last long after he was gone. He was content to stay close to home, to build his life in the town where he had grown up. Margaret grew into a spirited girl who reminded Beatrice so much of herself at that age. She was fascinated by everything, asked a million questions, and had opinions about everything. She also adored her father and wanted to do everything he did. Benjamin taught her to ride and shoot over Beatrice's initial objections. She should know how to protect herself, Benjamin argued. This is still wild country. I would rather she know what to do if trouble comes. Beatrice had to admit he was right. And watching Margaret and Benjamin together, seeing the bond between father and daughter, filled her with happiness. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Benjamin took Beatrice back to the meadow where he had proposed. They left the children with friends and rode up into the mountains, just the two of them, carrying a picnic lunch. The meadow was just as beautiful as Beatrice remembered, perhaps more so with the weight of memory and love attached to it. They spread a blanket and ate lunch, talking about the years that had passed and the years still to come. "Do you ever regret it?" Benjamin asked suddenly. "Marrying me, tying your life to mine when you could have had someone safer, someone who stayed home every night?" Beatrice looked at him in surprise. "Never, not once. Benjamin, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Yes, your job is dangerous. Yes, I worry about you, but I would not trade our life for anything." "Would you?" "God, no. You and the children are everything to me. I just want to make sure you are happy." "I am more than happy. I am fulfilled. I have you, our children, my school, this community. I am living the life I dreamed of." She moved to sit beside him, leaning against his solid warmth. "You gave me that life, Benjamin. You cut me free from those ropes, shot those locks, and then you stayed. You could have ridden away after bringing me home, could have been satisfied with doing your job. But you stayed. You saw me. You loved me. And that made all the difference." He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "I loved you from almost the first moment. When I opened that wagon and saw you there, so brave despite your fear, something in my chest just clicked into place, like I had been looking for you my whole life without knowing it." They stayed in the meadow until sunset, talking and holding each other, reaffirming the bond that had sustained them through 15 years of marriage. When they finally rode back to town, Beatrice felt renewed, reminded of all the reasons she had fallen in love with this man. Thomas graduated from law school at 22 and returned to Montezuma to open a practice. Within a year, he had more clients than he could handle, his reputation for fairness and intelligence spreading throughout the region. He courted and married a teacher named Sarah, and they started their own family, making Beatrice and Benjamin grandparents for the first time. James married a rancher's daughter named Elizabeth, and they built a house on land just outside town. He continued his carpentry work, becoming one of the most sought-after craftsmen in Colorado. Margaret showed no interest in settling down, much to her parents' amusement. She was too busy learning everything she could, helping her mother at the school and her father in the marshal's office. "I am only 18, she told them. "There is time for marriage later. Right now, I want to see what I can do, who I can be." Beatrice understood that hunger for knowledge and experience. She encouraged Margaret to pursue her interests, even the unconventional ones. Benjamin supported his daughter completely, proud of her independence even as he worried about her future. On a crisp October morning when Beatrice was 45 and Benjamin 48, They were working together at the trading post when a stranger rode into town. He was young, dust-covered, wearing a deputy marshal's badge. He asked for Benjamin Faulkner, and Beatrice directed him to the marshal's office. Benjamin came to find her an hour later, his expression serious. That deputy brought news from Denver. The territorial marshal is retiring, and they want to offer me the position. It would mean moving to Denver, taking charge of law enforcement for the entire territory. Beatrice felt her stomach drop. Denver? Leave Montezuma? I know this is our home, but it is a tremendous opportunity, and it would be safer, mostly administrative work, rather than being in the field. He took her hands. I told them I needed to discuss it with you before giving an answer. This decision affects both of us and our family. What do you think? Beatrice looked around the trading post, at the business she and her father had built, at the town visible through the windows. This place held so many memories, so much of her life. But she also thought about the opportunity Benjamin was being offered, the recognition of all his years of dedicated service. Tell me honestly, she said. Do you want this position? Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. Part of me does. It is the kind of job I never thought I would be qualified for. But another part of me does not want to leave. This is where we built our life. This is home. Then we stay, Beatrice said firmly. The honor of being asked is enough. We have everything we need right here. Relief flooded Benjamin's face. You are sure? I do not want you to feel like I am holding you back or limiting our opportunities. I am completely sure. This is where we belong, Benjamin. This is where our story began. This is where it should continue. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Thank you. I love you so much. I love you too. Always. Benjamin declined the position, recommending a younger deputy he thought would be perfect for the role. The territorial marshal accepted his decision with grace, noting that Benjamin's work in Montezuma had been exemplary and would not be forgotten. Life settled back into its familiar rhythm. The school continued to grow and thrive. The trading post remained successful. Benjamin continued his work as marshal, mentoring young deputies and maintaining order in the region. When Beatrice was 50 and Benjamin 53, he started talking about retirement. I have been doing this for over 20 years, he said one evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. Maybe it is time to let someone younger take over, someone with fresh energy and new ideas. What would you do if you retired? Beatrice asked. Help you at the school, work at the trading post, spend time with our grandchildren, maybe finally finish that book you gave me, the journal I never seem to have time to fill. Those sound like good reasons to retire. 6 months later, Benjamin hung up his badge and passed the marshal's position to a deputy he had trained personally. There was a ceremony, with speeches and presentations, the whole town turning out to honor his service. Beatrice watched with pride as people testified to all the ways Benjamin had helped them over the years, all the times he had been there when they needed him. Retirement suited Benjamin. He took on more responsibility at the trading post, allowing Beatrice to focus more on the school. He spent hours playing with their grandchildren, 5 so far with more likely on the way. He finally filled that journal with stories of his years as a lawman, preserving those experiences for future generations. They grew older together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing down. But the love between them never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year, deepened by shared experiences and mutual respect. On their 30th wedding anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered to celebrate. Thomas and Sarah brought their 3 children. James and Elizabeth brought their 2. Margaret, who had finally married a doctor at 25, brought her infant son. The house was full of noise and laughter and life. After dinner, Benjamin pulled Beatrice aside. Come with me. I have something to show you. He led her outside to where 2 horses stood, saddled and waiting. I thought we could take a ride, just the 2 of us, like old times. They rode out to the meadow, the special place that had witnessed so many important moments in their relationship. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. Wildflowers carpeted the ground, and the aspen trees whispered in the breeze. Benjamin helped Beatrice dismount, then took both her hands in his. 30 years ago, I found you in a wagon with your hands tied and your spirit nearly broken. I cut you free and shot those locks, and in doing so, I freed myself. You gave me purpose and love and a reason to be better than I was. You gave me children and grandchildren and a life beyond anything I dreamed was possible. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for saying yes when I proposed. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for loving me all these years. Beatrice was crying now, happy tears that streamed down her weathered cheeks. You saved me, Benjamin. In every way a person can be saved. You showed me what love looks like, what it means to commit fully to another person. You gave me safety and passion and partnership. You supported my dreams and celebrated my successes. You are the best man I have ever known, and I would choose you again in every lifetime. They held each other as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting and true. The years had changed them physically, but the core of who they were remained constant. They were still the deputy marshal and the trading post owner's daughter, still the man who cut ropes and shot locks, and the woman who stood back up after being knocked down. As darkness fell, they rode back to their house full of family. Their children and grandchildren welcomed them with hugs and questions about where they had gone. Beatrice looked around at all these people, this family she and Benjamin had created together, and felt a contentment so complete it took her breath away. This was what happiness looked like. This was what it meant to be loved and to love in return. This was the life she had been given when Benjamin Faulkner found her in that wagon 30 years ago and decided she was worth saving. The years continued to pass, bringing the inevitable changes that come with age. Benjamin's hands, once so steady, developed a tremor. Beatrice's eyes weakened, requiring spectacles for reading. They slowed down, moving through their days with less speed but no less purpose. Thomas took over running the trading post, expanding it with his lawyer's mind for business. James built them a smaller house, perfectly crafted and suited to their needs. Margaret's husband joined her in running the school, allowing Beatrice to finally step back and enjoy a less demanding role. They became the town's elders, the couple everyone looked to for advice and wisdom. Young people asked them how they had stayed together so long, how they had built such a strong marriage. Benjamin always said the same thing. Find someone who makes you want to be better, then show up every day and choose them again. Beatrice would add, and remember that love is not just a feeling. It is actions and choices and commitment, especially when things get hard. When Benjamin was 68, he had a spell where his heart raced and his breathing became labored. The doctor said it was a warning that he needed to take things easier. Benjamin grumbled about being treated like an invalid, but he followed the doctor's orders because Beatrice insisted. I am not ready to lose you, she told him firmly. So you are going to take care of yourself, and we are going to have many more years together. And they did. Benjamin recovered his strength, though he moved more carefully afterward. They spent their days puttering around the house, working in the garden, visiting with children and grandchildren, and great-grandchildren as they arrived. On quiet evenings, they sat on the porch and watched the sun set behind the mountains, holding hands the way they had for 40 years. Sometimes they talked about the past, remembering adventures and milestones. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, content just to be together. Beatrice was 70 when Benjamin finally asked her the question that had been on his mind for years. Do you ever think about that day when I found you? All the time. It was the worst day of my life and the beginning of the best part of my life, all mixed together. I think about it too, about how easily I could have missed you, could have been too late, about how one choice, one moment changed everything. It changed everything for both of us. She squeezed his hand. You were my hero that day, Benjamin. You are still my hero. You are mine too. You survived something terrible and came out stronger. You built a school that has educated hundreds of children. You raised three amazing people and helped shape the next generation. You did all that while loving me and making me better. If anyone is a hero, it is you. They sat together as the stars emerged, two people who had found each other in the hardest of circumstances and built a love that had lasted a lifetime. Or my. The town of Montezuma spread out below them, lights twinkling in windows, smoke rising from chimneys. This place had been their home, their haven, the setting for their greatest joys and deepest sorrows. No regrets? Benjamin asked softly. Not a single one, Beatrice replied. Everything I went through, even the bad parts, led me to you, led me to this life. I would not change any of it. Neither would I. They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, into the warm house their son had built, surrounded by evidence of the life they had created together. Photographs lined the walls, showing their children at various ages, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. A quilt made by Margaret draped the sofa. Furniture James had crafted filled the rooms. Books Thomas had given them lined the shelves. This was their legacy, Beatrice thought, as she and Benjamin prepared for bed. Not just the physical evidence of their family, but the love that bound everyone together. The values they had instilled in their children, who had passed them to their children in turn. The commitment to community and education and justice that had defined their lives. They climbed into bed, Benjamin's arms coming around Beatrice in the familiar embrace that had comforted her for 42 years. I love you, he murmured into her hair. I love you too, always and forever. They fell asleep holding each other, content and complete. Outside, Montezuma slept under a blanket of stars. The mountains stood watch as they had for millennia, solid and enduring. And in a small house on the edge of town, two people who had beaten the odds and built something beautiful rested in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that they had lived well and loved deeply. The seasons turned as they always do. Spring came again to Colorado, bringing new life and renewed hope. Benjamin and Beatrice celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by 4 generations of family. The whole town threw a party in their honor, recognizing not just their marriage, but their contributions to the community over 5 decades. At the celebration, Thomas stood up to give a speech. My parents have shown us all what real love looks like. It is not just romance, though they have plenty of that. It is partnership and respect, and choosing each other every single day. It is supporting each other's dreams and weathering storms together. It is building something that lasts. He raised his glass. To Benjamin and Beatrice Faulkner, the finest people I know and the best parents anyone could ask for. Everyone drank to that, and there was not a dry eye in the room. Beatrice looked at Benjamin, saw the tears streaming down his face, and felt her own tears fall. Look what we did, she whispered. Look at all of this. We did good, he whispered back. We did real good. After the party, after everyone had gone home, Beatrice and Benjamin sat in their quiet house and reflected on 50 years of marriage. Did you ever imagine it would be like this? Beatrice asked. That first day when you found me, did you have any idea where we would end up? I knew I wanted to see you again. I knew there was something special about you. But imagined all of this? He gestured around at their home, at the life they had built. No, this exceeded my wildest dreams. Mine too. She rested her head on his shoulder. I am so grateful, Benjamin, for every moment, every memory, every year. You are the greatest gift I ever received. The gift was mutual, my love. You are the greatest gift I ever received, too. They sat together in the gathering darkness. Two souls who had found each other in the wildness of 1870s Colorado and built a love story for the ages. The rope burns on Beatrice's wrists had long since faded, but the memory of Benjamin cutting her free, of him shooting those locks and opening that wagon to save her life, remained as vivid as ever. That day had been a beginning, the first chapter of a story that had unfolded over 50 years, and as Beatrice and Benjamin sat together in the home they had made, surrounded by evidence of the life they had created, they both knew that their story, while nearing its end, had been worth every moment. They had loved deeply and well, had built something lasting, had left the world better than they found it. Outside, stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky. The mountains stood eternal watch. And in Montezuma, Colorado, the town they had helped build and shape, life continued its rhythm, enriched by the legacy of two people who had found each other against all odds and refused to let go. Benjamin squeezed Beatrice's hand, and she squeezed back, a silent communication that needed no words. They had said everything that needed to be said, done everything that needed to be done. Now they could simply be together, content in the knowledge that their love had been real and true and lasting. This was their happily ever after, earned through years of commitment and choice and showing up for each other every single day. It was not a fairy tale ending, but something better, a real love story, with all its imperfections and challenges and triumphs that had stood the test of time and emerged victorious. As night fell completely, Benjamin and Beatrice Faulkner sat together in their home in Montezuma, Colorado, their hands intertwined, their hearts full, their story complete.